Greetings. This is going to be the first of my videos on songwriting, and I am going to start with a series on secondary dominants and bridges and modulations. Okay, those are all going to be interrelated, and this first video that I'm making, this is going to be on secondary dominants. Now, the idea of a secondary dominant has to do with basically a dominant seventh chord in a different key than the one that the actual song is in. So to take a simple example, if we are in the key of C, okay, the dominant of C is G. And so G7 is going to be the dominant seventh in C. And, you know, you hear songs all the time. With that G7 inserted in there. So a secondary dominant would be a dominant seventh that's in some other key besides C. Okay? For instance, if I took C, there I went from the key of C, I did a sudden D7 and was able to modulate to G because D7 is the dominant chord in the key of G. Okay, and that's a fairly common modulation. It's only one key away, one sharp away, if you're looking at the circle of fifths, and I'll include a download of the circle of fifths in the with this video. Basically, G has one sharp, C has no sharps, so they're very closely related keys. So it's pretty simple. And what I did there, right after establishing G with the D7, I went back to a G7. We ended up back in C. Okay, it's a very easy transition to make. Okay, when you're going from two closely related keys like that. Now, if we wanted to go a little more distant, say for instance to the key of E, or no, let's jump to the key of D. So the dominant in the key of D would be A. So A7, right? D, E, F, G, A. Dominant is always the 5 chord, okay? So I could do something like this, again starting in C. And then now I've established the key of D, all right? And there are better and worse places to plug in the dominants, and that's just something that depends on what's happening with the melody of the song, or if there's no melody, just how it's being used, and that's where you use your own ear and also creativity. You know, you'd want to make sure your first key is established. There, I ended up back in C after doing the A7 to D, D7 to G, G7 back to C. Okay. Now there's a general principle that it's easier to leave home than it is to come back. And what I mean by that is I can jump to almost any key, and while it might be jarring, I can still make that leap and find a way to make it kind of work. If I were to go even to an even more distant key, say I wanted to go from C to F sharp, all right, that's pretty far away on the old circle of fifths. So here we go, C. just go right back to C, that just sounds weird. You can't go back the same way that you went forward by leap. And I'm speaking in general terms here. There are instances where it happens and instances where it works, but it's much more difficult. So if I've gone from C to F sharp, now I've got to kind of sequence my way backwards. So F sharp 7 to D, or to B, to C, and now I'm back to C after having reversed myself through the circle of fifths. So gone from F sharp to B, to E, to A, to D, to G, and finally we're back at C. Okay? Now, you don't have to go through all of those to get yourself back to it. There are other ways of using relative minor keys and such to make that happen. But generally, if you've gone really far afield, you can't just jump right back to your old key. You have to find a way of modulating back into it smoothly. So, couple examples of secondary dominants in use. One, they're very much used in gospel-y type stuff. And here's Elton John's Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. All right, it's in the key of C, and he's got lots of G7s establishing the C. But not too long after the song starts, he's got this. Growing tired, tension still before me. And then he has this F chord, which is in the key of C. Then he hits C, and then C7, which now establishes F as the key, however briefly, okay? To save itself from falling. And then he does it again. C7, back to F. Establishes F even further here by throwing in a B flat chord, which is the 4 chord in the key of F. Okay, so he's playing around basically between these two keys, between C and then using a C7 to establish F at times, okay? And like I say, that's a pretty common thing in gospel. An example from one of my own songs, Come to Me While I'm on the Run, that's in F. And for the bridge, after still in basically F. Then I jump to a D7. Where I'm establishing, well, not G in this case, but G minor. Okay. Okay. That's also a very common move. Now, the way I get back to F is really very simple. I use a bass line that uses the last 5 notes, or the first 5 notes going backwards, of an F scale. The thing is, those same notes are in G minor, okay? G natural minor, so it's not a big stretch. And back to G minor. Now, just as an aside, you'll notice I'm using E flat and F, okay? That just means it's F mixolydian instead of F major, very common in rock and pop. One other song, Leave Her Alone, I moved from E to C, okay? And there, I'm in an E chord at the end of the chorus, and then I use, it's basically a G suspended chord, but it's still got the seventh. It has a dominant function. And on into C. And the way I get back into E is by throwing down an F sharp minor chord, which was in the verse of the song, okay, to B7, and that leads us to E, although I actually go to its relative minor, it's a deceptive cadence, C sharp. And finally I'm back into E. Okay, so again, F sharp minor, which is the 2, that's the 2 of E, B7, C sharp minor, okay, G sharp with a C sharp in the bass, and then A, B, dominant, and back to E, okay. So again, you can see I took a bit of a circuitous route coming back to it, but secondary dominants are just great and easy for launching you into a new key. You just have to be careful coming back, and that's what I want you to take away from it. Whatever key you're starting in, you can pretty much jump to any 7th chord and then to its 1 chord or even its minor 2 chord, and you'll be fine. Getting back is the tricky part, and that's what takes a little bit of finesse. And that's it for today then. Next time I will talk about descending bass lines and how they can be used to both establish keys to basically get you in and out of those key situations as needed. Okay? All right, take care.